The General Overseas Service of All India Radio presents readings from an autobiography or the story of my experiments with truth. The reading from the autobiography is presented by Sri Gopalakrishna Gandhi, writer, teacher, and the youngest grandson of Kasturba Gandhi and Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. The words of the Mahatma in the voice of his grandson.
I advertised for a piece of land situated near a railway station in the vicinity of Durban. An offer came in respect of Phoenix. Within a week, we purchased 20 acres of land. Some Indian carpenters and masons who had worked with me in the Boer War helped me in erecting a shed for the press. This structure, which was 75 feet long and 50 feet broad, was ready in less than a month. I now endeavoured to draw to Phoenix those relations and friends who had come with me from India to try their fortune and who were engaged in business of various kinds. They had come in search of wealth, and it was therefore difficult to persuade them. But some agreed. Of these I can single out here only Maganlal Gandhi's name. The others went back to business. Maganlal Gandhi left his business for good to cast in his lot with me, and by ability, sacrifice and devotion stands foremost among my original co-workers in my ethical experiments. As a self-taught handicraftsman, his place among them is unique. Thus the Phoenix settlement was started in 1904, and there, in spite of numerous odds, Indian opinion continues to be published. I had now given up all hope of returning to India in the near future. I had promised my wife that I would return home within a year. The year was gone without any prospect of my return. So I decided to send for her and the children. Ramdas, my third son, broke his arm while playing with the ship's captain. Ramdas landed with his hand in a sling. The doctor had advised that as soon as we reached home, the wound should be dressed by a qualified doctor. But this was the time when I was full of faith in my experiments in earth treatment. What was I to do for Ramdas? In fear and trembling, I undid the bandage, washed the wound, applied a clean earth poultice, and tied the arm up again. This sort of dressing went on daily for about a month until the wound was completely healed. There was no hitch, and the wound took no more time to heal than the ship's doctor had said it would under the usual treatment. This and other experiments enhanced my faith in such household remedies, and I now proceeded with them with more self-confidence. I widened the sphere of their application, trying the earth and water and fasting treatment in case of wounds, fevers, dyspepsia. These experiments involve obvious risks. Just when I felt that I should be breathing in peace, an unexpected event happened. The Zulu rebellion in Natal. I bore no grudge against the Zulus. They had harmed no Indian. I had doubts about the rebellion itself. But then I believed that the British Empire existed for the welfare of the world. The rightness or otherwise of the rebellion was therefore not likely to affect my decision. Natal had a volunteer defense force, and it was open to it to recruit more men. I read that this force had already been mobilized to quell the rebellion. I considered myself a citizen of Natal and being intimately connected with it. So I wrote to the governor, expressing my readiness, if necessary, to form an Indian ambulance corps. He replied immediately, accepting the offer. I went to Durban and appealed for men. A big contingent was not necessary. We were a party of 24, of whom, beside me, 4 were Gujaratis. The rest were ex-indentured men from South India, except one who was a free Pathan. In order to give me a status and to facilitate work as also in accordance with the existing convention, the chief medical officer appointed me to the temporary rank of Sergeant Major, and 3 men selected by me to the rank of sergeants and 1 to that of corporal. We also received our uniforms from the government. Our corps was on active service for nearly 6 weeks. on reaching the scene of the so-called rebellion, I saw there was nothing there to justify the name of rebellion. At any rate, my heart was with the Zulus, and I was delighted on reaching headquarters to hear that our main work was to be the nursing of the wounded Zulus. The medical officer in charge welcomed us. He said the white people were not willing nurses for the wounded Zulus, that their wounds were festering, and that he was at his wits' end. He hailed our arrival as a godsend for those innocent people, and he equipped us with bandages, disinfectants, etc., and took us to the improvised hospital. The Zulus were delighted to see us. The white soldiers used to peep through the railings that separated us from them and tried to dissuade us from attending to the wounds. And as we would not heed them, they became enraged and poured unspeakable abuse on the Zulus. The wounded in our charge were not wounded in battle. A section of them had been taken prisoners as suspects. The general had sentenced them to be flogged. The flogging had caused severe sores. These, being unattended to, were festering. The others were Zulu friendlies. Although these had badges given them to distinguish them from the enemy, they had been shot at by the soldiers by mistake. The Zulu rebellion was full of new experiences and gave me much food for thought. I could see that but for us, the Zulus would have been uncared for. This work, therefore, eased my conscience. I can now see that all the principal events of my life were secretly preparing me for Satyagraha. The principle called Satyagraha came into being before that name was invented. Indeed, when it was born, I myself could not say what it was. Madan Lal Gandhi coined the word Sadagraha, Sat, that is truth, and Agraha, that is firmness, and won the prize. But in order to make it clearer, I changed the word to Satyagraha, which has since become current in Gujarati as a designation for the struggle. I was anxious to observe brahmacharya in thought, word and deed, and equally anxious to devote the maximum of time to the Satyagraha struggle and fit myself for it by cultivating purity. In making these experiments, I had several companions, the chief of whom was Hermann Kallenbach.
You just heard the reading from the autobiography of Mahatma Gandhi, presented by Sri Gopala Krishna Gandhi, the youngest grandson of Kasturba Gandhi and Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi.